So good morning once again. Thank you for being here. We will get underway, and thank you once again for your patience as I sort through the new technology. Really cool to have new gear and to see how I can improve on your experience of receiving the classes and so on. So please take a comfortable seat. You can rest your hands in your lap. Let your eyes close. I just want to encourage you to feel the joy of arriving for your practice, even if there's other things happening for you, like how you slept or what you ate or what's on your mind. Try to connect into the inner joy of coming to your practice. So that inner joy is called the Ananda, the center of the koshas. As you breathe into the central channel of the body, just try to sense you're tapping into that central experience of joy also. And like the model of the koshas, when I draw that for you, I make it in concentric circles. You could imagine that as you're breathing up and down the central channel, there is a kind of concentric expansion of your intention. And also this intention becomes your attention. And that can flow outwards to encompass your physical practice. So from Anandamaya Kosha, then Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya, Anamaya. Our focus today is going to be again in the second chakra in pursuit of the inner practice of coming home. And once at home, the ability then to be in the heart for the practice called Mudita, happiness for the happiness of others. Mudita is also called appreciative-joy. So please bring your hands together at your heart. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityodama Amritam Gamaya Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorama Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namah. Hari Om. With your exhale, you're welcome to bow your head to your heart. And you may release your hands, open your eyes. So mudita is an experience, teaching of being happy for the good fortune of others to help us overcome a felt sense of our suffering. So all of the Brahmaviharas are actually remedies to suffering. And if you think of the causes of suffering as things like envy and comparison, jealousy, even judgment, disdain, those sorts of feelings that you have in you, of course, receiving those experiences is uncomfortable, but generating them is also uncomfortable. One of the causes of suffering is living in a constant state of comparison or a constant state of envy. And we put that on the pendulum between craving and resistance, desire and aversion, wanting and not wanting. And that pendulum, we say, is swinging at the second chakra, where the senses are like, I want this, I don't want that. I want this, I don't want that. And so when that pendulum becomes more still and quiet, we have access to the heart that can have this quality of happiness for the joy of others, or a feeling of goodness for their beneficial circumstances. And that is not an easy practice if we're not feeling our own happiness. If we're feeling abundant and joyful and, full in our own hearts with that kind of happiness, then of course it pours out to others. We feel like, oh yes, mudita, I'm happy for the happiness of others. I recognize my own happiness and I don't feel any loss. But the practice of mudita is actually to be practiced when we're having a difficult time with comparison, jealousy, envy, and so on. Those are called the near enemies and the far enemies of compassion, of mudita. So when we're in the clutch of something, we take the practice to help us to free our own hearts from living in that clinging and aversion, wanting and not wanting, to free our hearts from living in comparison or envy. How you doing there, honey? Hi, Nakula. Yeah, you don't like the harmonium so much just yet. Now it's over. You get to relax. You got your spot. Yeah, that's a good place to be. I won't step on you there. Okay, so our practice this morning is going to be to help us overcome that swinging of the pendulum at the second chakra. So let me switch the microphone to our physical asana practice. Just a moment. Yeah. Okay, please come onto your hands and knees. And now the way that my camera is, I have to do my hands and knees pose now sideways. So let me change myself here to go this way. Yeah. Okay, so when you come to your hands and knees, place your hands so they're shoulder width apart. And place your hands directly beneath your shoulders to begin. But then step your right hand well forward of your left hand. Press down through the palm of your hand. Reach back with both hips and lower your left elbow to the floor. Relax the weight of your head. Now connect into the pelvis, and as you inhale, raise your sitting bones. And as you exhale, root your tailbone. So you're going to go through a kind of cat-cow pelvis while you have your right arm stretched out in front. So think of it as a chance for the pelvis to create an undulation in the spine. What you might do is on the inhale, when you draw the sitting bones back, think of energy moving down from the breath, moving down into the pelvis, the sitting bones, the lower belly. And on the exhale, as you use your cat pose pelvis, tone the front belly, sending the energy back up the spine. And do that one more time, please. Press into your left palm. Return your right hand to table where your hands are directly under your shoulders. Step your left hand well forward of your right and touch the right elbow down. Notice that the hips don't go back to child's pose. This is more like a puppy dog pose. And so as you exhale, find the undulation of the cat pose pelvis, also called a posterior tilt. And then inhale, glide your sitting bones back, raise your tailbone. And move that undulation through at the pace of your body breathing. And as you're moving between posterior and anterior tilt or cat and cow tilt, notice also the momentary pause that comes at the top of the inhale and the bottom of your exhale. The physical movement also has a moment of pausing. And press into your right hand. Return your left hand to table pose. Step your right foot back to plank pose. Now in your plank pose, inhale, bring your cat pose in. And then exhale and just glide your heart forward. Table pose with the upper body. Now step the left foot back into plank pose as well. Notice the tone that you need in the lower pelvis and the legs for plank pose. Let's squeeze the feet isometrically towards each other to increase the cohesion of the lower body. You can isometrically press your hands towards each other so the center line of the pose is overall stronger. And then inhale, tippy toe, your body weight comes forward. Exhale, reach back. Your heels go behind your toes. Inhale, roll forward. Exhale, roll back. So stay in your plank pose. You're just shifting over your ankles, toes, wrists, and shoulders. And then touch the knees lightly down. Raise the hips up and walk both hands forward to the puppy dog pose. Press your hands forward and down. Bow your forehead to the floor, only if it touches comfortably. So in puppy dog pose, you want the hands and arms to act like downward dog pose. Raise the hips high, lift your sitting bones. And then place the elbows down and shift forward to Sphinx pose. And in Sphinx pose, point the toes behind you. Raise your chest and heart forward. Root the tailbone down. Now, for some of you in Sphinx pose, it's going to be really important to remember to press the tops of your feet and your knees down. Okay, let's take a little sequence now using the Ujjayi breath. Inhale in your Sphinx pose, raise your heart. Exhale, press up to this version of table pose where you've got your knees and your elbows kind of far apart. Inhale, lift the elbows, press backwards to puppy dog pose. Exhale, come forward to this awkward table pose on the elbows and the knees. Inhale, glide through to Sphinx pose. Exhale, press your elbows and knees down, table pose. Inhale, raise the elbows, move your hips back, puppy dog pose. Exhale, lift your torso, come onto your elbows, this weird table pose. And then inhale to Sphinx pose. Exhale, press down through the elbows, raise the lower belly and pelvis, table. Inhale, raise your elbows, reach back with your hips, puppy dog pose. And one more time. Inhale, come forward to the elbows on this table pose. And exhale to Sphinx. Press the tops of your feet down, also your knees and your tailbone, and then press your hands down against the floor and inhale, raise your elbows. And exhale, roll all the way down. Place your hands beneath your shoulders and press up to your customary table pose and back to child's pose. And then walk yourself into Vadrasana, kneeling. Okay, so you have a little bit of an awakening for the body right there. I'd like to give us a sense now of how these crisscross abdominal muscles work together, how they collaborate to make the tone that you need for some of these poses. And sometimes it's helpful to then isolate a certain part of the abdomen to do that. So for this purpose, I'd like you to take 2 blankets and lay them across your mat horizontally. If you have a foam roller, you can also use that instead of the 2 blankets. Lay them across horizontally like so. And then lie on your back so you have your shoulder blades on the 2 blankets. Cross your elbows so the elbows can hold the opposite hand and elbow can hold each other, and rest your head there. So we're coming over the 2 blankets like a little back bend. And my hope is that the length of your arms, or the box shape that you've made with your head with your arms, is holding your head. If that's not the case, if your upper arms are longer, then cross one hand at the back of your head so that you're holding the opposite shoulder. So that looks like this. Some of you are holding the opposite elbow, some of you are going to hold the opposite shoulder, because I want your head to be supported. Stretch the legs out straight. Now, as you inhale, lengthen your right elbow and shorten your left side waist slowly. And then exhale, return that to center. Notice the right upper belly helping you to come back to center. Inhale, lengthen your left elbow, shorten your right side waist. And exhale, as you come back to center, recruit the left upper belly to help you with that. Inhale, lengthen your right elbow and your right heel. Exhale, come to center. Inhale, lengthen your left elbow and your left heel. And exhale to center. Inhale, lengthen your right elbow, lengthen your right heel, and then stay for a moment. Exhale, cross your right ankle over your left. Inhale, lengthen your right elbow and your right heel on this little arc. And then exhale, return to center, your right leg and your torso. Inhale, lengthen your left elbow. Exhale, cross your left ankle over your right. Inhale, lengthen that little arc you're making from your left heel to your left elbow. And then exhale, return to center. Sweep your arms overhead, release the weight of your head. And then as you exhale, lengthen your tailbone towards your heels and notice what happened to the lower hemisphere of the abdomen. And try to keep the sense that the lower belly and pelvis right now, you've stabilized as you take the tailbone towards the heels. Create a sense of tone across the lower abdomen from one hip bone to the other. And then reach the arms enthusiastically from there. And exhale, raise your head, your arms, your shoulders. Roll up to sitting. Okay, and then take a cross-legged position, please. So having a sense there in that your abdominal muscles, they do have a diagonal pattern. They do crisscross on the belly. So we have a transverse abdominis, and then we have our obliques, 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 and obliques. And in the center, we have this thing called rectus abdominis, which is less important to us right now for pranayama. So as you sit upright, place your hands out over your knees. Close your eyes and just see what's now happening to this sort of central channel in you. The practice of pranayama always deserves our respect. And we approach the practice with humility and respect. So begin now the Ujjayi breath from the pelvic floor. Let the breath fill out the first third of the pelvis, the middle third, and then the upper third. Without interruption, so continuous breath. Inhale to go up. And then the exhale beginning at the pelvic floor and also going upwards along the front of the spine. Now when you're sensing the movement of the breath, and we just had a bit of physical asana, try to sense if continuous breath for you also means that each region of the breath is receiving the inhale to the best extent. And take the arms, turn your palms out to the side, and pace the arms with your breath. So it's, excuse me, inhale first third, continuously into the middle third, and continuing into the upper third. And the exhale, as the arms go out to the side, exhale from the base upwards. So the exhale breath and the arms are kind of passing each other in space, arms going down, exhale going up. And do that several times now, where you're going to balance the length of your inhale and the length of your exhale. As you're counting, it might help if you have the breath kind of counting in something dividable by 3 because we're doing first third, middle third, upper third. So you can adjust the pace of your counting to match the pace of the breath so that you get that sense that there is 1/3, 1/3, and the upper third. And then rest your hands in your lap. And if you had a pendulum in the second chakra, what is its pace right now? And please rise up to standing. We're going to do some pranayama in horse stance and jazz dance warm-up stance. So when you come up to stand, let's actually go to the jazz dance warm-up pose first. Yeah, place your hands out on your knees, stretch the inner thighs, root into your outer heels. And even though we're not going to be moving the arms, let's go directly to that ujjayi where you have the first third, middle third, upper third. And try to sense the back and sides of the body, not just the front. So if your breath is a little bit longer and the pace of your counting, you might be doing inhale first third for 4, middle third for 4, upper third for 4. Or you could just slow down how you count to 3, and each section of the breath is about 3 counts. Start noticing if it would be comfortable for you. Let's say you're inhaling, each third is about 3 counts, and they're continuous, there's no interruption. Would it be possible to have an inhale pause for 3 at the top and an exhale pause for 3 at the bottom? And if that's entirely comfortable, then allow yourself to enjoy that and make each transition from the movement to the stillness of the breath and back to the movement, make those transitions really smooth. And then when you complete the next exhale, rise up, make your feet parallel, and come down to Prasarita Padottanasana. And in this version of Prasarita, we're going to walk the hands forward, so the pose is pretty stretched out. So one thing you might remind yourself is that when you're inhaling just to an inhale pause, it's as if you've completed the movement of the air, but the musculoskeletal thing of inhaling is still happening. And the same when you've completed the exhale and you're in the exhale pause, the movement of air has ended, but the exhale muscles are still there. Once again, when you complete the next exhale, then walk your hands back towards the place where your feet are. Turn your right toes completely out. Turn the left heel out to the side. And please bend your right knee. Take your right hand up against the inside of your knee and come down into a little stretch for the upper inner right thigh. And as you press against your right knee, do so thoughtfully. You don't now have to count the breath, but I would like you to sense an evenness to the inhale with the pauses at the top, and evenness to the exhale with the pause at the bottom. With the right foot turned out, it's a little bit like your jazz dance pose, except that we have turned it this time completely 180. And then rise up to center. Rotate your right foot back to be parallel with the short edge of the mat or slightly turned in. Turn the left toes out completely. Then slide your right heel slightly back and take your left hand up against your left knee. Now, as you're breathing here, of course, it's okay to keep counting the breath. You don't need to if that starts to give your mind a kind of OCD. But you might sense these 1/3, middle third, upper third, really on the left hemisphere of the body. So even though your focus is on the breath, and that's what I'm recommending, of course, you can have a reference that there's other sensations happening in the body. When you've completed the next exhale, then turn your left foot in, straighten the left leg, and return to Prasarita Padottanasana. This time, as you bow down, reach back to interlace your fingers at the small of your back, roll the shoulders open. And let's see now if we can do inhale first third. During the middle third, the torso comes slightly forward. In the upper third of the breath, bring your collarbones forward. And then exhale to bow over your legs. As you're moving through, you might recall the first part of our practice between the table, the puppy dog, the sphinx, and so on, that we were undulating the spine there. A very similar undulation here. So make it a continuous and smooth movement for the breath and for your torso. Keep some tone at the inner arches and at your inner thighs. Let's do one more time through the movement. One full breath cycle, please. And then shift your hands to your hips and rise up to standing. Okay, let's go heel toe to center. Please come to mountain pose. And just try to sense, if you're standing in your plumb line, what's happening with your pendulum. The pendulum is the mind and the senses at the second chakra. You could just ask if things might feel more organized, more centered or cohesive. Okay, and then we're going to turn towards Surya Namaskar. And let me see if I can manage this, if I can do it. I want to see how it turns out, so thanks for going with me. Okay, yeah, let's try this. We'll see. Okay, that's the floor version there. It's interesting. What you guys are noticing is that there's a lot more brightness from the phone camera, and the setting on the expensive camera is showing that the room is darker, but it's not actually darker. So I have to check the settings for that. Well, let's see if we can do this where you'll be able to see the standing part and the floor part of the practice. We're going to be using Anjaneyasana. So I'm going to put my blocks tall because that's where I am right now with my hip replacement recovery. So please come to the front of your mat. Join your hands together at your heart. Root down through your tailbone. Come into the Ujjayi sound, and as you inhale, take the first third of the breath, palms face out, middle third, the mid-torso and back waist. Upper third, please reach up, look up. Exhale, chair pose. Tone the pelvic floor, come up the inner belly towards the sacrum, and up the interior of the spine. Inhale, rise up and look up. And then exhale, bow forward, come down to Uttanasana. Inhale, glide forward through your heart. First third, middle third, upper third. And then exhale, take the left toes back and touch your left knee down to the floor. Root your tailbone and inhale, rise up to your Anjaneyasana. And in Anjaneyasana, don't collapse into your front hip, but rather press into your right heel. Lift from the pelvic floor inwards and upwards. And while we stay, focus on that sense you've got the first third, middle third, the upper third. Little inhale pause at the top. And then follow your exhale to come forward and down. And inhale into plank pose. To make that transition, straighten your left leg first, and then float your right foot back to plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale to plank. Exhale, cow pose. And then inhale to seal pose. Exhale, table pose. Notice the lower belly just in front of your sacrum. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Enjoy the inhalation. And then exhale, left foot forward, right knee down. And inhale, glide up to Anjaneyasana. Press firmly into your left heel so you're not hammocking into your front hip. Give yourself the time, the freedom to really be with the experience of the breath here. It's intended to help you focus your mind, to quiet the pendulum, and to give you the inner experience of yoga, of union. And follow your exhale smoothly to come forward and down. As you place your hands, then inhale, straighten your right leg and float your left foot back to plank. Then exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank, gaze down between your thumbs. Exhale, cow pose, bring your gaze forward. Inhale, seal pose. Exhale, table. Inhale, plank. And exhale, downward facing dog pose. And then exhale, right foot forward, left foot forward, Uttanasana. Root your heels and toes. Inhale to chair pose. Exhale, sit a little more deeply in your chair pose. Inhale, rise up, upward hands pose. And exhale, sweep the arms wide, make a little standing back bend. Inhale, come up to mountain pose, hands to the heart. So this relationship from the fourth chakra to the second, this is really vital. But if the second chakra, the pendulum, is swinging about, it's really hard to come into the heart. It's hard to have the vitality and the maturity to come up into the heart. So let's go again. This time we're going to use the standing back bend and Salambhasana and a little bit more dynamic work with the shoulders. So Ujjayi, inhale, take the hands down, wide and up. Now as you exhale, open the arms wide and come into a standing back bend. And inhale, raise up, look up. Exhale, chair pose. Inhale, rise up, take the arms like the letter Y. And exhale, Uttanasana. Pour your torso over your thighs. Inhale, glide forward. Left toes back and left knee down. Inhale, roll up like through a cat pose spine up into your Anjaneyasana. Now, if the lower body is really stable in Anjaneyasana, you can open the arms like the letter Y and begin the process of a little back bend up in the heart. Spin your triceps towards your nose so the shoulder blades widen on your back, and press the base of the shoulder blades in towards the bottom of the heart. Lift up through your collarbones, open your throat, and then exhale, sweep the arms wide, come forward and down. Place your palms firmly. Now, before we go back to plank pose, I'd like you to press down into both hands here and let the hips glide towards your front ankle. Walk your right hand forward inside the edge of the right knee. If you have the stability for it, walk your left hand forward so it's reaching out next to your right, and you can bow your head toward the floor. Notice your right ankle, your right knee, your right hip, left hip, the pelvis, the inner belly. And for a moment, just be considerate and kind to the part of you that does struggle with maybe occasional comparison or jealousy or envy. You walk your hands back to your blocks. Inhale, raise up through your chest and your heart, your commitment to Mudita. And then now with your next inhale, straighten your left leg and take the right foot back to plank pose next to the left foot. And notice there's going to be a temperature change that goes from your right hip down to your right heel. Inhale, reach high, downward dog pose. Inhale, forward to plank. Exhale, cow pose. Inhale, forward to seal pose. Exhale, table pose. Inhale, plank. Exhale, right knee to your elbow. Inhale, downward facing dog. And then exhale, left foot forward, right knee down. Stabilize the lower hemisphere of your pose. Rise up, Anjaneyasana. Let's take the arms into a Y shape. And if the lower body is really stable, you do have this advantage to then rise up to the heart. Spin the triceps in, so your thumbs go wider, the palms face almost towards the back wall. And maybe sometimes during your practice, you have to reach for your aspirational self, your inner aspiration, let's say for mudita. Maybe you have to pretend sometimes. We say in DBT, we're acting as if. And other times it will come very naturally through you. So with an exhale, tone the lower belly, come forward over your left leg. And then walk your left hand forward. So you're on the inside of your left thigh. And then walk the right hand forward if you have the stability for it. Notice your left ankle, left knee, left hip, inner belly, right knee. Maybe you can make a little prayer that the residue of comparison or envy or jealousy or the misguided movement of the mind in those directions, maybe that could soften or lessen. Maybe the volume could go down. And please walk your hands back towards the place where you use them for plank pose. And then inhale, curl the right toes under. Straighten your right leg, step back to plank. And then inhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, cow pose. Open your heart and your throat. And then inhale, seal pose. Exhale, table. Curl your toes under. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, left knee to your elbow. Inhale, downward facing dog. Great, and exhale, step forward with both feet and bow towards the legs. Okay, inhale, rise up. Urdhva Hastasana, look up, please. And then exhale, come into your standing back bend. And rise up to mountain pose, hands to your heart. Okay, and take a step onto the wide part of your mat. Come into your jazz dance pose once more. Return to the Ujjayi breath, first third, middle third, upper thirds. Let's turn the left hand in and twist to your right. And come to center. Turn the right hand in, twist to your left. And come to center. Okay, now I think you have the stamina to stay, and so we're going to practice a smooth inhale, continuous, but aware of the thirds, first third, middle third, upper third. Of course, take a break with your legs anytime you need to. With the exhale, again, I want you to sense the exhale like yesterday, drawing up the front body. At the end of the exhale, the muscles that you use to make the exhale, without any inhalation coming in, I'd like you to relax those muscles and feel the momentary suction that's happening there. And then tone the belly before you inhale. So it goes like this. Let's inhale together for those who need to follow my instructions. And then exhale slowly, starting the tone at the front of the pelvic floor. Move up the front of the sacrum, up in the diaphragm, up towards the heart. At the end of that exhale, you've squeezed the breath out without inhaling. Totally relax the belly muscles that made the exhale. Then tone before inhaling, so the inhale can be smooth. And try that again, please. Exhale slowly. Don't make yourself breathless, so the pace of your exhale will matter there. As you get to the end of the exhale, you've completed releasing all of the air, and then relax the muscles that made the exhale. And then tone the low belly before inhaling. And now straighten your legs, make the feet parallel, and come down to Prasarita-Padottanasana. So what happens here is that you have your torso a little bit inverted. Relax the weight of the head. Let yourself come to equilibrium. So there's no sense of breathlessness or urgency. If your mind is getting sped up, it's an important time not to proceed into a suspension, but to bring your mind back where the pendulum is really still. We should not practice pranayama with craving and aversion, raga and dvesha. So when you're ready to, you'll inhale smoothly, little inhale suspension at the top, exhale completely, squeeze the exhale muscles, and then without inhaling, you'll totally relax the exhale muscles. There'll be a natural suction inside. Then you'll tone the belly before inhaling. And once you've done that twice in that position, then step down to Vadrasana. Come to Vadrasana, rest your hands in your lap. And try to sense what's happening with the pendulum of the mind. Now let's take a blanket and set it up to be there for your feet. Fold your blanket in thirds, so it's going to be thicker. Like this, that's going to go where your feet will be. You'll need 2 blocks. And 1 cat, apparently. Nicola, you don't even know how photogenic you are. You have no idea. You're not aware of it at all. Oh, Are you having a good purr? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so please lie on your back. Place your feet up on the blanket so they're elevated. Put the soles of the feet together. Put the blocks for the knees. So you know what your position's going to be there. And then bring the knees up. Hold the back of the hamstrings. And glide your knees towards your shoulders. Give a little rock side to side. To keep the knees as wide as the shoulders. And to rock side to side, notice how you have to use the horizontal belly muscles, not only the other abdominal muscles, but the transverse and the obliques. They're kind of passing the responsibility side to side for rocking. Let that rocking get more and more still. But see to it that it's actually rocking. So it's not just that you're now moving your thighs and your shins, but also rolling on the back of the spine and the sacrum. When that comes to stillness at the center, then touch your feet together on the blanket and put the knees and the thighs on the blocks. Bring your mind down into the pelvis and let's imagine again that it gets really still, the pendulum between comparison or jealousy or a feeling that you never measure up or others are always getting somewhere and you're not. The sense of misperceiving others' journeys, misperceiving your own. Let's let that pendulum get really still and quiet in the pelvis. Imagine yourself being free from the mental habit of comparison. You can be free from the mental habit of jealousy. Perhaps you could release the mental habit of evaluating, a felt sense of never measuring up. Deeply relax the inner belly, deeply relax the upper inner thighs, your hip joints, your sacrum. Imagine that the waters of the pelvis become really still. As I said yesterday, very receptive and reflective. Invite your mind to profoundly profoundly relax, particularly the habits that keep you in the pendulum. So the absence of craving, the absence of clinging, the absence of resistance, the absence of avoidance. As the pendulum becomes very still and the waters of the pelvis more receptive, more reflective, notice what happens in the relaxation of your body. How much tension is generated by craving and aversion. And what happens when you resolve those, even temporarily, just during Shavasana? So you're unburdening the body from that pendulum. Now let's notice what's happening in the heart. Perhaps the heart has access now to the natural qualities. Compassion for the part of you that suffers from the pendulum. And then mudita, appreciative joy, delight in the ease or good fortune of others. To feel our heart's capacity for that. We're more free from the habit of comparison or wanting. Slowly fold your knees up to center. You're going to roll to one side to return to sitting. Let's see here. Okay. Please take your seat for a few minutes of meditation. You want to stay with me? You can stay. Okay. So listen into your own body now. What tension might be released when we're not on the pendulum swinging back and forth? And what inner freedom or happiness might actually be liberated. And what happens in the heart? So important. What happens in the heart? Perhaps karuna, compassion for the part of us that does fall into the habit of the pendulum. And mudita to help us come out of that habit. Looking about for the good fortune of others and wishing them that good fortune to extend. This is not an easy practice. It does help us to overcome the inner mental habit of feeling less than or not getting enough of the goods. Cultivates an inner quality of santosha, contentment. Please raise your hands together at your heart. Thank you all very much for being here. Namaste. Yeah, I have a certain responsibility here, but I can hear your questions if you'd like to ask a question. I can't read the chat from this place because I can't operate the mouse to open the chat. But if you have a question or a comment, you're welcome to share it. You can vocalize it. Margaret, are you prepared for this? This is the breed of cat. It's why they call them floppy cats or ragdolls.
I'm excited because my cat just does this.
Oh.
He's not on me. So we're all looking forward to a cat be on us. Although I suspect the cat will be on our cat probably instead of us.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Nakula is very relaxed, kitty. Right now. He was concerned about the harmonium earlier. Yeah. I will read the chats when I am able to get up to go over to the mouse over there. Any questions from the practice? Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a question. Okay, so about the breathing. So the breathing in threes on the inhale, I get it, I feel it. Yes, that's a big yes for me. When we do the exhale, and I'm not talking about suspension, just the practice we were doing the first part of class, I almost need more of I understand the visual of the exhale also starts from the bottom and comes up, but I'm losing the tactile sense of it in the exhale that I have so strongly on the inhale. So since it's moving from the bottom up still on the exhale, should I still be thinking of expansion in those three regions, or do I let that go and think of the exhale moving, expanding in a different? Does that question make sense?
You'll let that part go, because if you think of, you've expanded these concentric circles, as I sometimes say, But on the exhale, you're really just coming up the central channel. In fact, you're leaving everything else aside, as if you had a boat on a river and you're disembarking the unnecessary baggage. The exhale is just coming up the central channel. So it's an organizing principle. It makes a cohesive, stronger inner antenna. The inhale expands out from there. We stay in the central channel in the teachings of yoga, but there's a sense that the body's actually expanding with the inhale. On the exhale, more like a cohesion is rising up like that. Does that make sense? Nakula, would you like to give your input? Okay. You want to? Would you like to speak into the microphone? Okay. There we go. So the other thing, Margaret, is that I am now covered in white cat hair, wearing black yoga tights. So you have to change your wardrobe. Any other questions for me or for Nakula? Would you like to answer any questions? Okay. I will close class here and I'll hobble over to see what the chats say. Oh, honey. What a life you're having. Okay, and I will see all of you tomorrow, and I'll keep working on the tech setup. You can see how the room is really well lit on the video where you see Nakula. It's the same room on the other camera, but the brightness factor is different, so I'll take a look at that. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Nakula, how fun you are. Yeah, thank you.